on directly to the quantum of token. It could be 1 megabyte equals 0.1 token, for example, and 1 CPU unit of time equal to 0.1 token, for example.
And is that stuff all measurable?
It should be measurable because people want predictability in terms of the cost. I think if you look at the BigQuery case, that's the biggest issue they have there, because you can't estimate. It's very variable, your cost. Like your CFO would be pissed if 1 month it's $100, next month it's 10 grand.
No.
Yeah, that same query that's executing generates that SQL plan, and part of that SQL plan is actually breaking down into query cost, data transfer between nodes, and as long as that's described very well, and then if you have a token, I guess it makes sense maybe to have a separate token that you can actually say, well, this will cost so much.
There's
or
one
a unit of gas.
Yeah, there's one more issue here which we'll talk about later, which screws up all of these plans. But generally, you want to have the unit of computation and the unit of resource consumption equal to a unit of the token.
Yes.
So there's a one-to-one matching there, so it's easy to
Simplicity.
Yeah.
When we're in control of the definition of our own secondary blockchain, then theoretically we can control, if we have control of the reference implementation of that blockchain, then we can just declare by fiat law of this system that one token buys you so many of this and so many of that, and then the only thing that changes is what the market is willing to pay for that token. In a system where the token is more exposed directly, then we might not be able to control that.
Okay. So we have two kinds of resources, and the resources are tokenized, and users will have their multiple roles within this ecosystem, this token economy or decentralized economy. There are people who contribute their spare capacity because the underlying technology here is P2P, it's peer-to-peer. They get a reward for executing the queries and to give up their storage. And the resource is directly compatible with the token price exchange we've set. And the people who consume these resources, who are executing the queries and using that intermediate storage. We are not charging users for the blockchain storage. It is only the intermediate results that are copied on from the blockchain that matters to us. And I think that's fair. And because the blockchain is a public resource, and we shouldn't be charging for access to public resources.
They're already they're already paying in whatever kind of cost it requires to do a transaction of that size on that blockchain to put the source data into that blockchain.
So something we talked about yesterday was the third player in this ecosystem. Do you guys remember what that third player was? There's the producers and the consumers.
Right. I was suggesting that there might be intermediary players who are taking someone else's data that is just in a raw form on the blockchain, not data that they created, and wanting to expose it for others to use. So for example, this would be the type of user that Google is when they're creating those BigQuery data sets. They are taking data sets that were created by other people in the public, and they are exposing them through BigQuery for others to use.
So we have a use case here where your storage space is not just transitionary, which is not just existent during the course of that query execution, but you can actually persist the results of that query onto our system, and anyone who wants to, which would be a public resource, and anyone, or a shared role-based access. For example, if you're an organization, you have a intermediate query result that you expose to your organization, and the consumers of that data are paying for using up that resource. and we'll have to figure out how exactly that